All right, so we are here. Pierre-Paul Turgeon is back in the Rockstar Global headquarters.
By popular demand.
Oh, of course. Yeah. We had people screaming from the rooftop. Hey, when's Pierre-Paul coming back? What's going on? I think last time you were here, I don't think I was talking to you. I think Tom was.
Yeah.
I think you guys went through a bottle of wine during the podcast.
Was it tequila or something like that?
Tequila
Usually I'm empty-handed today. It's just because I flew from Ottawa, so didn't fly directly from Calgary. But
and shame on me.
I'll make it up.
Well, I offered you a coffee. I probably should have offered you some tequila or something.
That was a mistake. I'm going to be completely wired, Nick. But anyway, you don't know what you're getting into when you give me an espresso.
Well, you know what? It's good. There's no drinking today because I have other stuff to do afterwards. Otherwise, the podcast after this, God knows where that one goes if we start if we start cracking the liquor now.
We did tequila shots last time.
So you're back in. So what's going on, man? From Alberta to here. First of all, what's going on in Alberta? Tell me what's going on. Because Alberta's been blowing up. You're taking all our Ontario people. People want to leave to Alberta.
Well, we still have freedoms, personal freedoms.
And you're trying to get. She's trying to get more, actually.
Absolutely,
yeah.
and making money in Alberta is still a good thing. We're not looked upon like bad people, especially landlords. You know what I'm saying? We don't have rent control. So the way the world used to be a happy place, we still have that in Alberta.
That's nice. That's nice. How and what about the economy there now? It's picked up over the last number of years. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Thank God. As you know, many times when I was on this show, things were pretty rough, especially for landlords. But things have picked up. I'm giving rent increases, Nick, in the range 10 to 16% in some instances.
Just because demand's so high right now.
Demand is high, but just the economy picked up as well. We're finally learning to diversify in Alberta. Home prices are lower, land prices are lower.
Did the work from home stuff help a little bit? Like, because other people in other parts of the country kind of moving out there, not so much.
Not as much as it is in some areas like Toronto or the larger centers. No, it's not been as much as a factor. But people, also where I work from home, you don't work from home. You had a beautiful office, but it's not as much as a factor as it was. For example, I was in Ottawa yesterday with a lot of civil servants, where even from a real estate point of view, it was an issue, but not so much. Not so much in Alberta.
Yeah.
No. We don't have issues with traffic, right, Tom? So people don't mind going to the office.
Yeah, because and Calgary had a big boom up, and it seems to be slowing down now. Hopefully it levels off for a little bit. Edmonton seems to be picking up the steam right now.
Yeah. Well, so that's, if you want to get into that. So I live in Calgary.
Okay.
Well, not even Calgary. I live in Cochrane, which is 20 minutes west on an acreage.
Actually, someone was just talking to me about Cochrane the other day. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know about it. But yeah, now I know.
Well, and I'm actually subdividing my land. So finally cashing out on that land play, if you will. But so Edmonton is 3 hours north. And what happens to the real estate market in Calgary, it always explodes first. Like, not explode, that sounds negative, but it gets on fire in Calgary first. And then Edmonton lags behind Calgary, I would say a year and a half, usually. So values and so on. But yeah, you're right. So Calgary's calmed down, values have gone up and all of that jazz. The boom has kind of leveling off. Now it's happening in Edmonton.
Well, that's traditionally what's happened around here too. Toronto goes first. Now the market dynamics are a bit different because the supply of housing is different because Toronto's primarily condos. So we don't have the same things happening because if someone's looking for a detached home, they're not looking in Toronto anymore because the ones that are available, there's not nearly as many.
Yep.
They're quite expensive to some of the surrounding areas, right? So that's changed that dynamic a little bit. But for years, the money would flow into Toronto. When affordability got tight, then the money would start flowing, like overflow from Toronto. We call it the spillover effect.
Yeah.
It would overflow into these other surrounding areas in the 905.
And that's happening. Guess who was on the speaker yesterday at the Ottawa Real Estate Forum? Mike Moffat.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about exactly what you're talking about, how it's spreading out to the suburbs.
Yeah. He does great population. He's got so much data on the population. He slices the population data in like 50 different ways. Like I don't even know how he comes up with all the different angles. But But
same phenomenon in Ottawa, right? It's the same. It's going to happen, right? You gotta find land values cheaper if you want to build and so on. So pretty cool. But so Edmonton, is on fire now. I also think it's leveling off, but like I said, the problem was that, and I've discussed this with Tom many times. We in Alberta, when the music stopped And when Justin came to power, because that's when the music stopped, we had out-migration of population, where people that worked in the oil and gas went back to Nova Scotia and so on, and we had high vacancies. We had to give rental incentives. I think I shared that with you. That's hurting. But now we're catching up. Like I said, the rent increases are somewhere between 10 to 16%. So happy place now. Nice cash flow.
Need to talk to someone in that industry, that energy industry in Alberta. I want to see what's really going on, because are we investing at all in that industry? Are we ever going to do that? Are we going to get off our heads out of our asses in Canada and realize where the world's going, and that when we have resources as Canadians, we can responsibly use those resources to create a strong economy and country for everyone here, instead of just trying to wipe them under the rug and not even talk about them in some weird way. It's so strange.
Well, if your brother were here, I would challenge him, because I was saying this on many of these podcasts when I come through town, right? And I kept saying, this is wrong. All of Canada is going to pay for that. And of course, as a result of his last trip to Abu Dhabi, right, he was making similar comments to what you just said. And we have the cleanest oil in the world, the highest environmental standards in the world. Literally, we're a world leader when it comes to that. The Chancellor of Germany comes here a few years back, and
I remember this.
Justin Trudeau says there's no business case. Are you out of your frickin' mind? And then same thing with the Prime Minister of Japan, and I think the President, whatever, Greece came. You have the environmental minister now is Jonathan Wilkinson, I think, right? Something like this at the federal level. So
I try to ignore the federal Liberal Party as best possible.
Well, I should too, but if we ignore them too much, they get away with stuff, right? And that's what I would challenge Tom, because Tom was saying last time, I don't follow politics. That's pretty much what you just said. But if we don't keep up, we're getting
I follow it. I just don't want to know the person's name.
But the point is, he said oil's going to peak in the next decade. Nowhere near that. That's not going to happen. But we need to transition away towards a greener economy.
Is it really? Because a lot of I'd imagine some people are going to question you on that, and I'm no expert. I don't know if you're an expert, and we should find maybe someone. But because the story around the oil in Alberta is that it's not really clean. It's, there was the tar sands label for a long period of time, and that to extract the oil in Alberta, it was just you destroy, it's just way worse than anything else. I don't know. Admittedly, I have no idea.
I'll be honest with you. So I'm not an expert either, but I have educated myself. I continue to educate myself, because at the beginning, to be honest with you, I started investing in real estate. And as you know, I'm only a multifamily investor. I didn't know much about that. And since then, I've educated myself. Of course, it's not clean. I'm not saying it's clean, but it's cleaner. And they cleaned up their act. I even reproached to my friends. I hang out with oil-rich people, and I said, you guys screwed up years ago, right? They weren't paying attention to the environment. Now they've cleaned up their act. It's not an overnight kind of thing.
Sure.
So we can't, the point, Nick, I would say it's more yes, we need to move towards a greener technologies and so on, but we still need oil. Our world, our lifestyle would not be the same without oil. So all we're saying is give them enough of a turnaround time to clean up their act, but it's happening very fast. Edmonton's the hydrogen capital of Canada and so on. They're investing billions into that technology of carbon capture. So, no, I'm not going to say it's clean. Obviously, it's not ideal, but we don't have another source of energy that is that cheap, that enables guys like you to have the lifestyle that we have, traveling and all of that. So it's just a matter of phasing out this transition with realistic, timelines.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about recently, and I've thought about that. I'm like, you would think that there's got to be some technology by now that can make the process better than it was, and it seems like it has.
It's coming.
And that's one thing I really don't follow at all. I don't know oil extraction technology at all. I know zero.
Listen, the developing economies, they also want to have cheap access to, access to cheap energy sources and so on, right? It's just, we just cannot turn it off the tap overnight. Obviously, encourage people to watch the new series on Netflix by Bill Gates about that. It's a very fascinating one, including on energy sources. That's why we're going towards nuclear a lot more, right? That's common sense, and it doesn't pollute as much, and it's safer now.
Yeah.
So
well, you see the tech companies are now they're buying or building nuclear reactors to run the
Bill
data
Gates did that.
the data centers that they need. So specifically for AI,
absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be for all sorts of stuff, right?
He bought 3 Mile Island. Did you recall that when you were old enough to remember the disaster years ago in the U.S.? 3 Mile Island nuclear.
I had to look it up.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, it's my happy. You don't know this, but this is my happy year. That's why I remember stuff like that. I'm 62 today. I'm born in 1962, and I'm 62.
Really?
Yeah.
Today? Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I didn't know that. Well, we should be doing shots.
The reason we're talking about historical stuff that happened, 3 Mile Island, disaster at the nuclear plant, and that just made me think, hey, I'm 62 today, because I tend to forget myself. It's not a big deal for me, but yeah.
Okay, well, looks like the liquor's coming out after. Cool. So then, what the heck? What are you doing in Ontario on your birthday?
So I'm going to say, I'm trying to figure out which act this is. You know how in people's lives there's different acts?
Yeah.
It's clearly not my final act. I'm in top shape. Not as much as you. I don't go to the gym as much as you do. Nobody can. But
you're in good shape, man.
I'm in very good shape for a 62-year-old. I'll have you know, Nick, I still can carry my 40-pound backpack over mountain passes in my Rocky Mountains. My goal is to do that until I'm at least 80, like Europeans.
There's a lot of people in their 20s that can't do that. So
I still do it, like, this summer again, done it, and that's sort of my goal. But no, I'm here. It's one of those, not my final act. I'm not going to call it that, but it's definitely a new chapter. My kids are grown up. They're gone. Just a big house in the countryside with my wife and I.
How weird. That must be that's different.
It's hard. I still miss them.
I believe it.
I don't like it, but the good news is they're off the payroll, the family payroll, and they're well managed financially, which is something that we all need to teach our kids. But so what am I going to do? I could retire now. I got a portfolio of apartment buildings and so on. I travel, have a great lifestyle. What am I going to do? Where are the opportunities, right? Well, it's in real estate still. Obviously, the game has changed in Canada, clearly. But I was a multifamily underwriter for a number of years at CMHC. I own a portfolio. I've been teaching multifamily investing, as you know, since 2011. What do I do next? Well, the opportunity to me is in construction. We have a housing crisis that's very severe. We need to build. And that's sort of why I'm here. I'm drumming up business. I'm a licensed mortgage advisor. And
you've clarified that to me about 5 different times. So I gotta make sure that I
and you know why? Because sometimes brokers, that, right? They're perceived negatively.
Do you know that we have our real estate licenses? We're considered realtors, and sometimes they're perceived negatively too.
I've said no. That's why I know that. That's why I made the comment. Actually, I remember saying this to your brother. I said, "Oh, it's weird. I'm not rarely considered a realtor." But exactly for that. That's why the reason I mentioned that. And the way I look at this, with the background that I have, so I'm an investor first and foremost. I used to, at CMHC, if you recall, I used to be the manager of a regional department within CMHC of default management and real estate. So I bring that background, how to play, not just offensively, but defensively as well, right? So I bring that along. I own 136 stores, a portfolio worth $26 million or something like that. All my years at CMHC and teaching. For me, it's a logical extension. What do I want to do with my time? I want to be part of the solution of solving the housing crisis in Canada. So that means what? Building more supply in Canada. I have the wherewithal. It's a logical extension to what I've done in the past. There's money to be made. I have a recipe to make millionaires. I'm going to talk about this today, a program that hardly anybody knows. And what I like about this program is it's one of many that need to be implemented and developed in Canada. And if people have developing the skills to build developments, go for it. But anyway, are we ready to talk about that?
Well, let's talk about. I mean, look, when you say recipe to make millionaires, then people.
Yeah.
No, but let's talk about it, because it is a different program than. Because I asked you, I was like, oh, so you're focusing on this MLI Select program, which has kind of recently changed. Right, and I know it was driving a lot of approvals for a while, and a lot of people picking up
and a lot of people made money with MLI Select.
Yeah. So think. So what is this? So what's this one then?
So this one is.
So this is a CMHC program.
It's a CMHC program. You got it. CMHC program. It's called the Apartment Construction Loan Program, ACLP, which is a repackaging of another program that was called the RCFI, Rental Construction Financing Initiative. I have no clue why there's not more promotion of this program. I don't understand. I think there will be. So I'm proposing myself as an advocate to spell it out. What it does and why this can make millionaire. How about getting 100% loan to cost financing where you're building, Nick? Would that help a little bit?
Most people don't want that.
Right? And 10-year term, right? And the cost of money a lot cheaper because they use the securitization money like the CMB to give you a cost of money, 50-year amortization. 100% loan to cost. Like I said, interest only payments financed by the loan during construction through to occupancy permit. Principal and interest payments are due, listen to this, after 12 months of stabilized effective gross income, EGI.
Really?
Right? So you build your thing, and then you move on, take your money back, go and build another one.
Well,
Yeah.
What kind of projects that you need to be building, though?
So this is interesting, right? Remember I said I'm not just a mortgage broker, I'm a mortgage advisor. Just to backtrack a little bit, my skill set. So studied here in Ottawa, also in Ottawa, got a law degree from Ottawa, studied at U of T in political science and international relations, worked at CMHC and all of that. The program, when you read this stuff here that I have, it's 5 units or more. However, I'm not going to deny to you, it's also a political tool for the Liberal government right now because they're the ones that came out. And by the way, 30 billions is allocated to this.
And it's a new program?
Well, it's not really new. That's the thing. It used to be called RCFI, and now they're repackaging it under ACLP, which is Apartment Construction Loan Program. Okay. All right. Why not more people know about it? I'm unclear about it, but this is in effect now. They're saying it's for 5 or more units, all right? But in actual effect, because I get training, we got training on this program this summer from CMHC, and that's where the mortgage advising come in at play. Now I'm in the know. Now I'm in contact. I did this kind of training that I wasn't getting from CMHC, from lenders and so on. They will pick. So you file your financing application, but they're going to pick projects that build the most units, right? So that they can score points with the general public, even though they're saying 5 units or more for the time being. As time goes by, more units are being built. Obviously, it's also targeting smaller projects as well, like the one you described about your friend. Like I know this is taking place in GTA, right, with laneways, units and so on.
Sure, yeah.
Same thing in Calgary and Edmonton. But it's a tremendous way, you can make a lot of money doing something like that. And people... what you're doing in the U.S. with a lot of people, and I came back from Ottawa where they built a fund and they're buying in Houston. Mind you, it's multifamily, but same idea. I understand why people are doing it. But what I would like people to know from our conversation today is like, if you have some kind of development skills, you should consider something like that. The housing crisis, Nick, is, in my opinion, having a pretty decent knowledge of history going back to the wars, is the biggest single challenge this country is facing since the Second World War. It's causing social pressure, encampments in all the cities across Canada and so on. I was listening to a radio show from out east, I think it was New Brunswick, some inmates being freed from jail. They have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Think of divorced people when they want to split, they have no...
Our youth.
Our youth. Well, my son, right, lives in a dog crate, to call it the way Ron Butler calls it, right on Front Street of that area, right, $2,100 a month. No balcony and no utilities. What kind of life is that? If he wants to move to another job or labor mobility, it's hampering that and all that. So
it's impacting one other thing. And I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all good.
The one other thing about the youth that the housing crisis is impacting is our birth rate.
Of course.
And the affordability challenge is here, and if with a declining birth rate and
Huge.
People too concerned. I mean, there's 2 main reasons if you look at different, depending on which study you believe and which polls and things like that. But it seems like the 2 main reasons that a lot of young people aren't having kids or it's declining. One is they just don't want to at the same age as before. They just want to live their life free. Yeah. They don't want the responsibility, and the second is that they just don't know if they can afford it.
Yeah.
And, it's a real problem because if you have to move out of the dog crate and then how do you afford the next step up? Right?
It's sad.
So, it's
sad.
terrible.
Very, very, very sad. No, I agree with you. And for me, to sum it all up, why I'm here. So I'm here to drum up business, let people know I'm a licensed mortgage advisor.
I'm calling you a broker no matter what you tell me. No, I'm joking.
Well, the point is, so why I'm saying this is I think I'm unique in the wealth of knowledge that I bring to the table. Like I said, that experience at CMHC, having some legal knowledge and all of that, and as an investor as well. I don't give legal advice. I don't give accounting advice. That the standard advice. You go and get your own expert.
Sure.
This being said, can I suggest you consider this and this alternative and this avenue to structure as a borrower and so on? So that's kind of why I look at myself as a mortgage advisor, not just a broker getting the financing done.
Yeah, but if someone has recently, let's say someone's done a fourplex or something, they've recently done a project.
Well, fourplex wouldn't qualify.
No, I know. But they're like, hey, okay, so now I've learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
And they're trying to step up.
Yes.
And they didn't know about this program. Yes. Then all of a sudden it's like, hey, maybe it's time. Okay. Maybe I haven't just done like a basement unit, or a garden suite. I've done a little bit more, and I feel like, if I'm going to do 4 units, maybe I can just kind of amplify that a little bit, find the proper piece of land, and I can do 10 or whatever, might be able to get you qualified. Then it's worth knowing about.
You are so right. It's the same level of effort. How big can you think? And all of us with our limiting beliefs, we tend to think smaller. You're absolutely right, Nick. And that's so I want to be part of the solution. And I make no beef about it. I want to make money. Of course I want to make money.
Sure.
And I have the wherewithal and the skills. Like I said, right now, I'm very lucky. My kids are gone. I for the time being, I'm not doing more teaching, at least not this fall. Normally in the fall, I would have a workshop. I want to focus on making this transition as a mortgage advisor to help out people. But I want to be part of the solution.
And why do you think this hasn't been being used? Like, why, if you're out there talking about it now, like, because you think it just wasn't marketed well?
It's not marketed. That part is still a mystery to me.
But there's a lot of federal programs, to be fair, that aren't marketed well.
Yeah. But why is it not? Look at the government we've got, right? We don't want to necessarily go there. I think we're in agreement that we're not well served by our leaders, and at the federal level, same difference. But the point is,
I have a Justin Trudeau T-shirt. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're going to make me puke. Don't wear it. I'm glad you're not wearing it today.
You don't know what it says underneath his picture, but I mean,
okay. Yeah. It's got to be a word with an F in there for probably.
Mine's more mild mannered, but yeah.
The point is, I took a development course just to know my commitment to doing this. My goal is I'm at a point in life I could retire if I wanted to. I have 62 today. I don't. I want to be an active citizen of my country that I love so much, Canada. I'm a proud French Canadian. I live in Alberta. I travel from Quebec all the way to the West Coast on a regular basis. I want to be part of the solution. As I said, in my opinion, and I think it's a matter of fact, this is the biggest challenge that our country has faced since the Second World War. It has political, social, economical ramifications. More programs like this, what I like about this, and what maybe I should put more emphasis on this ACLP, again, Apartment Construction Loan Program, it's direct financing by CMHC using a $30 billion project. So why I'm taking this as an example, Nick, is because it's very specifically targeted. It says 5 units or more, but at the beginning, in order to get political points, the government is going to pick the projects with the largest number of units, ideally, right? But it tells you what direction our leaders at all levels, municipal, which is culprit number 1 about this housing crisis, in my opinion. We can circle back to that if you want. Also, provincial leaders and federal leaders have lacked. This program is very specific. It gives you financing for a specific project. If you want it, you need to achieve the outcome, which is more units, all right? But it's direct lending. You know what happened to the Accelerator Fund, that the money that GTA got from the federal government, what they're doing? They turned around and increased their development costs in GTA by 40%. Have you not heard Ron Butler tell you that?
I've seen, I was just pulling a lot of the development numbers for a presentation and putting together. So yeah, I've seen it. I wasn't looking at the Toronto ones specifically. I just know the averages, but yeah.
I get this from Ron. I think I trust Ron. There's a lot of F words in this podcast, but he knows his shit. And so how come there's no accountability? The money was supposed to reduce development costs, and they're turned around and increased development costs by 40%. So something like this, you can't cheat. This is what you get the financing for. You do it. In my opinion, it's not tomorrow. I'm just looking into the future where this is headed. This housing crisis.
So and I agree with you. Like, look, the numbers that I saw earlier today was there's been 7 in the last 50 years. There's been 7 quarters where we've let in more than 250,000 people, and all 7 of those have happened in the last 3 years.
Oh no, it's
like it just
failure.
yeah. So I think we can all agree on that. Here's my and it. We need more people that are willing to help and create solutions, and yeah, if there's money to be made, then you're creating value, so you make money. Like that's the way. There's no problems with that. Here's my only thought with this is something that I've been thinking about recently, more around the Toronto area, and I'm like, I don't get how this market. So these are apartments, and the condo market in Toronto. But let's talk about the apartments. We're going to have housing units. But we also need a different type of housing unit.
Oh, what they built here is wrong. It's all these dog crates.
That's what I mean. But
we need 2 bedrooms.
But there's no incentives yet for people to be building those other types of units. So are we just waiting, thinking that demand will eventually fall? Those will fall out of favor, and we're going to have to start building other units because we need something. I know people talk about the missing middle. I'll look at it differently. I just need the step up for people to go. You're talking about stages of life. Yep. If I'm a young person. Let's take your son as an example. Yeah. So he's living in the dog crate. That's cool. You're downtown and you have your place.
He loves it.
It's fun. Like you party. Like it's great. Like but then, sooner or later for a lot of people, there becomes another stage of life. Maybe there's a partner involved and maybe there's a kid involved. And then you're like, oh, I need to take that next step. What happened in our cities to take that next step? We don't have these options.
Yep.
So this is cool and it's part of the solution.
And it's not perfect.
Yeah,
for sure.
But and I'm just curious your thoughts, and it's not even around this program, just your thoughts on that. How do we get that other part of the solution, which isn't just units, because everyone is focused on housing units. How do we get the right type of flipping housing?
Yeah, Mike Moffat was saying that, right? He's the author that came out, that he was, like I said, at the Ottawa Real Estate Forum yesterday, and said exactly that. We talk about units, but let's define that, because he's the one that came up with the 3.5 million units that's missing Canada. The number is larger than that, and let's define that.
I thought that was CMHC that came up with that.
Well, I think he's close buddy. He attends caucus meetings and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think that if I understood him correctly, it came from him. So to answer your question, you're right. We need to define and specify. We need to build the right type of units, which is more bedrooms. Why don't you, when you set up programs like this, determine we want a minimum of that many bedroom units and so on. But again, it needs to be tied to financing, which is the issue, right? You know how much construction costs have increased the last 4 years, like something in the vicinity of 40%, something ridiculous. Mm-hmm. For me, so the point is you gotta create financing programs that will enable you to build the right unit types as required by the market. But you can only do that if you have a carrot at the end. Okay, I'm going to give you financing if you build the right kind of stuff. The ACLP, again, the Apartment Construction Loan Program, also targets affordable, energy efficiency, and accessible. But it's putting less than MLI Select, right? That's what there was a total emphasis on. Now, in this particular case, it's more emphasis on more units. So they're starting to understand what you're saying, to be honest with you. But I wish there's nothing about specifying what kind of units, and I think that maybe is a flaw of this program. But if you're smart, that's what you're going to build, because that's what the demand is, really.
Yeah, it's what we're seeing. It's interesting. That's why I think there's demand for these. I guess they're low rise unit. When someone takes a single family, and we're talking about putting 4 or 5 units on it. Yeah. Still, relatively lower. They're not really mid rise yet, and I think there's going to be still demand for those because there's usually a little bit more room, easier access to the street. Parking will become an issue depending on, and if we don't fix our transit, then there's
What about infrastructure? There. What about the size of the sewer pipes and all that jazz and water? Somebody's got to invest money in that, because if you increase density, Nick, I don't know, your toilet's going to plug up. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? There's only so much. It weren't built for that much density. So that's something that I don't feel is being addressed.
So then how do we, and I'm just curious your opinion, because you've obviously put thought into the housing situation in Canada,
I do,
right?
Quite a bit, yeah.
And so do I. And I'm just kind of like, because I look at things and, something doesn't add up. I'm like, well, how the heck would this work? So then I look at the prices, because there's, a lot of people scream from the rooftops. They're like, well, the prices are going to come crashing down. The only way for Canadian real estate to go is crashing down. It's the third, fifth, first biggest bubble in the world, whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, well, how does this work? So how do prices come crashing down? Because we need more units, so we have to build units, okay? I don't see labor really kind of dramatically changing.
Nope.
I don't see cost of goods changing because of the inflationary environment we're in. The government keeps hiking their things. So even if the government fees stay the same, I don't see the government saying, you know what, we're going to start for a long period of time. We're just going to cut our development fees in half and we'll take that off. Or the federal government not applying tax.
GST.
Yeah, exactly.
Been
right?
eliminated finally.
And no one's going to build unless there's some sort of profit. And builders' profits, the margins typically are what, 12, maybe 15 on the high end. But that's any business, usually not higher than that, right? Sometimes they get squeezed down depending on circumstances. Yeah. So I'm like, if we do enter this deflationary mode where prices come crashing down, not to mention the banks are screwed because you have all these mortgages that are
We're talking about
underwater.
The price of housing units.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do we go back to if we use the term affordability, how do we make them more affordable if it seems unlikely that the new supply can be created for less than it can be created today?
So I love the question. I'm prepared to answer it because we generally, I think like you, we always talk about supply. And like you, I listen to a lot of viewpoints, a lot of podcasts. Steve Zaretsky is one of my favorites. I listen to Money Talks. I highly recommend it. Mike Campbell, Money Talks in Vancouver. And one of the issues, I think, where our governments, especially municipal governments, failed, I'm not clear who's got the right jurisdiction, somewhere between municipal and provincial probably, and also federal, is urban planning and land. So we keep saying it's a supply issue, but it's also been an urban planning issue whereby we didn't preserve land. We put all the land within the market, right? As opposed to saving some land where you could build affordable housing. Now there's been so much land speculation and everywhere in Canada. Hence, the reason why the dirt underneath where you build is worth more than what you build on top of it. And they failed to preserve some of the land. So can we go back? I know the controversy here with the green belt and Rob Ford getting into, but I don't know enough about it. But at some point, he also had a point where you got to have some land where people can build and make money. If people don't make money, you just said it yourself, they're not going to build. So you have to create that incentive for people to build. And this is where I think the governments have to get involved and provide that to
which is like this program is one incentive.
But it's not addressing land per se, but it's certainly addressing the cost of building.
Yeah. We had Floyd Marinescu in here before. I've known Floyd through some other things for a few years. So one of his things, he's a tech guy, and he's got, I believe he sold one business. I meant not, but he's got a current business. But anyways, he's kind of runs that. But his focus now is on, he's got I guess some sort of organization. The name escapes me. One around UBI, because he's like, with AI coming and stuff, this is coming, we're going to need this. And then one around, is it Canadian Wealth something? I forget, but it's about land value tax. And he's like, look, there's other countries that have implemented this, and we should have a land value tax. And that's how the property tax should be geared in these places, which means the property is taxed based on its highest and best use. So that if someone's sitting on a single family home close to GO station, very close to the city, it gets taxed at a higher rate because on that property, in that proximity to public transit and stuff, you could put whatever the 10-story building and 20 units there, whatever the number is, and it should be taxed on that to incentivize people then to develop it. Someone will buy it to develop it to reap profit from that. And the homeowner that's kind of sitting on that land won't want to sit on it for long because the taxes for it will be so high. Which I understand the logic to it, and he's well researched, and it's a thought out argument. It's not just up from left field. But you just want more for the government involved in more crap. That's the downside.
But at the end of my reaction is similar to yours, right? That this is taking away somebody's freedom, like that, pushing somebody out of their home and whatever they've owned. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to make compromises, Nick. Like I said, this is the biggest challenge this country is facing. Maybe compromises like that, as much as you and I is not our first inclination to impose, might be the solution. But you're going to have to make some hard solutions. Mm-hmm. But my point about this, what I'd like, sorry if I come back to this.
No, go ahead.
So even me, I am not a developer, but I've set out, my vision is very, very clear. Where we didn't address your issue about values. Are values really going to crash? I know condo market here downtown is a different story, right? That when the cranes are going downtown, none are going up, right? So that's going to be a scary.
Well, short term. I mean, there's inventory. I mean, yeah, I'm talking longer term anything, but there's always fluctuations in every market, and with the amount of supply coming on in Toronto, I mean, I think.
But demand is not going anywhere.
Yeah, but demand for that type of unit with that much.
Oh, that specific condo, yes, that's a separate issue. But
and with the supply coming on, until that supply gets absorbed, there's going to be softness there for sure.
But the condo market you're talking about, yeah. But generally speaking, if we speak more generally about housing in Canada, the demand is still there.
Oh,
you just mentioned how many immigrants, 1 million a year came the last couple of years, right? So I don't know. I wonder about that. I don't have the answer any more than you. I don't know that values would come down that much because of the high demand that we have at large. Like excluding, I'm not talking just about the condo phenomenon in GTA or Vancouver, right? Because people are in receivership and so on.
Sure,
right?
and you can't paint, I was just guilty of it. But you can't talk about the real estate in the country of Canada.
Yeah, that doesn't
with
exist.
One state,
we've all learned
it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so you got the plan from there. So walk me through this for a second, then, because we talked about that. So how do you foresee someone utilizing this program? So someone comes to you, they want to build 10 units, so they can get 100. You think?
Well, this is where the cool part. It although it says it's five or more units, at least 5 rental units. What I'm trying to do, I understand your question. I'm not going to try to get away from answering it, but my key message today, I'd like to be for people and it's the one that I'm applying to myself. I'm not a developer, but I do have that financial skill and the big picture, macro picture of where this is going, which is demand is not going anywhere. All right. What I urge people, even like you guys are down in the States now. At some point, I think we need to consider making a switch. All of us real estate investors. Let me take it from that level. All of us real estate investors, and that's what I'm doing. Let's think beyond a little bit the current situation. We know we have a housing crisis. We know we need to increase supply tremendously. How can we adapt and pivot towards becoming developers? Because this is the first, one of the best examples I see in my radar. Doesn't mean I know all the programs, but so far the biggest programs are spearheaded by my former employer and the federal government. More need to come like that, whereby you have financing program that's going to tell you what's needed. And you just added an element to it. Maybe we need to specify what kind of units that we need, like more of the 2 bedrooms and the 3 bedrooms to accommodate families. More of these are coming. So to me, I'm looking at this, hey, this is a first good attempt to stimulate housing construction. What I would like to see happen is more programs that could maybe come from the municipalities. Again, probably the money needs to come from the federal government, like the Housing Accelerator Fund. Maybe some money can come from the provinces as well. And of course, federal government's going to continue to do that. But again, I see you guys going to the States and my friends from Ottawa that have a large fund, they're in Houston and all that, makes sense. But hey, how are we going to solve our problem? How can we as investors, as business owners, be part of the solution? To me, obviously, it has to go through more programs like this one. And I'm asking myself, I don't have the answer, Nick. I'm standing before you very humbly, but I know what the vision is, and I'm so stoked and so excited because I want to associate myself with developers. I want to be part of that and be their guide, because as more programs like that are going to be coming out, there's no way, just the federal government alone cannot do it. I want to be at the forefront of all these new developments and being there with developers, advising them, because these regulations, you know what it is, it's convoluted, right? Then they make adjustments, like last June that CMHC came out with MLI Select changes and all that. I want to be the mortgage advisor that's going to work with developers to solve the solution. And I think guys like you, brilliant, smart, you have so much experience. Let's consider that, pivoting towards how can we become developers.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Long term, right? It's not going to happen overnight, don't get me wrong. But that's where I'm at.
No, the logic makes sense. And to be clear, like one of the reasons we're not in the U.S. because, well, primarily Florida, because of who we know down there.
Yeah.
We trust them and have people that we can lean on down there.
Yeah, people I know.
But it was less about the real estate, if that makes sense. It was more about taking some having some assets outside of Canada. It was about that, earning some U.S. dollars.
Yeah.
Having some, and I know you got to buy U.S. dollars to get into that market, but then you earn U.S. dollars back. Having some assets outside of the country, just to give ourselves options. That's really what it was more about that than the actual real estate investment itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I haven't sat down with you and Tom in a while, and I'm not shooting down that strategy. All I'm saying is, guys, we have potential. We have tremendous opportunities here. And like, this is one good example where you get 100% loan to cost financed with the low cost of funds, which is the issue now, right? It's not going to resolve the cost of construction material. But to me, that's how I look at it. I'm stoked.
No, it makes sense. We've had one property we've been sitting on because we were waiting for the city that it's in to basically, get everything organized to allow for additional zoning for higher density on it. And we were going to do work to it, and we're like, what's the point? Like, we should either just do we should wait till it can get approved for more before we do anything, and then we're going to go down that path. But purposely for the exact same reason, smaller scale on this particular property, but for the exact same reason. We're like, why are we going to do something to, create whatever, call it, a duplex or a triplex, if we can wait and we can get a couple additional units on it, we might as well wait and then do it all of that time, right?
Yeah. But my prediction is more programs, something like that, will be implemented over time. Unfortunately, our governments don't move fast enough, Nick. That's a drawback. It's a challenge. But for me, final act. I don't know what act I'm at in my life, but this is where I want to go, and I want to be part of the solution. And there's good money to be made. With
all the things that the government focuses on and spends money, like, this is something that can actually incentivize solutions to a problem. I think we waste a lot of time and energy on a lot of things that are useless. And this type of thing, I'm not saying this particular one, but it can make a difference.
Absolutely. It's a lot of stuff that is useless. To me, what I would like to see, and there's a few people in Canada that use the same word, we need a war-like kind of effort. We need all three levels of government, municipal, provincial, federal, to get together. Like, I think now in the last year and a half, especially, we understand the urgency of this housing crisis. Yet, I'm not surprised, because we have, again, leaders that are pretty pathetic. But these three levels of government need to get together and figure this out. Cut the red tape. Again, Alberta, where we still have freedoms, the city of Edmonton is cutting back red tape precisely to speed up the application process for building permits and so on. That's the kind of initiative that we need. Yeah. We need to have more of that.
Have you seen some municipalities, I think it's the ones that I saw, I believe it was Mississauga, I could be misspeaking, where they have like pre-approved plans for if you're going to build whatever it is, 2, 3, 4 units, whatever it is on the property, they have like, here's like 4 different options you can choose. These are all pre-approved
the catalog,
plans.
the pre-designed. She came out with that as well.
That's right.
It's a bit strange, but anyway.
But to your point about the wartime effort, that they're trying to kind of revive some of that. Hey, like, why don't go through all this? You don't, if you're getting something very unique, you have to go through a bunch of approvals. If you use one of these, we can just cookie cutter these things when they were building the 2, 3-bedroom bungalows back in the day, right?
Beautiful picture. Yeah. You're giving a fantastic, exact picture of what I have in mind. What about those containers, those metal containers?
Yeah.
I've seen a project in Edmonton, a friend of mine built it. I mean, the economies of scale are not there. It's going to take a little bit of tweaking of the system to put them together, but it's extremely beautiful, durable, what do you call it? Not flood-free, but typhoon proof or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that stuff like that. I don't know. Do you hear people thinking that way constructively at large nationally?
Not large national. Yeah, I was just going to say here and there, there's these kind of pockets, rogue ideas that come out, but in no organized big way.
Yeah, that's what needs to happen. In my opinion, it's a people working together at 3 levels of government: municipal, federal, provincial, and it's very unfortunate. But I think until this happens, we're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Very mystic, but
it just sounds the incentive structure is so difficult, right? Because in government, when you have to be elected every 4 years, there's a lack of people wanting to take responsibility because they're just worried about getting 4 years from there, or more often it's going to be 3 or 2 years, because by the time they get in the office, they actually start trying to do anything.
Yeah.
So then everyone just finger points.
Yeah.
Right. And the municipalities in the province can't really get access to the money the same way that the federal government can.
Well, especially with the CMB program, where the cost of money is reduced.
But then if the federal government is taking our money and just wasting it. Let's be honest. There's so much stuff.
Yeah.
We can't trickle down to these other governments the way the system's structured. So it becomes harder, even if the municipalities would like to do something. And I'm not saying they are, but I'm just saying it becomes harder for them because the only way that they can go and then try to balance their books is by increasing property taxes and things like that for people, because that's the only real source of revenue that they have.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're probably the federal government is the one that has to spearhead some of these programs.
Which, like this one, they did. MLI Select. I mean, the MLI Select program, I don't know the exact number, but when you look at the numbers of apartment, that's the growth in rentals,
huge.
It's been this huge growth. And that MLI Select program was responsible for a lot of that.
Yep.
Like I said, I don't know the exact number, but it's a huge amount.
I don't have those stats. I don't have access to those, but for sure.
But that's been, like, to me, like, okay, that's a good use of funds. Like, there's rental properties, rental units under construction right now, and a huge growth in them because of that program.
But then again, like I said,
I don't like giving them credit. That's the first time I'm giving them credit.
No, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. I give them credit. I saw the two reps from CMHC yesterday at the Ottawa Real Estate Forum, and I said, yeah, this is a great program. But then again, like I mentioned earlier, we go back to the Housing Accelerator Fund, like how many billions that GTA got, turned around and they increased the development costs.
Yeah.
There's got to be accountability, right? If you get that money from the federal government, the federal government has to make sure that the money is spent properly and creates the outcome that you want, which is lower development costs and less red tape and speeding up the granting of building permits. And that's not happening.
Yeah. You know what's interesting between the two that I just thought about right now is that MLI Select was from the government to the private industry, whereas the developer, the Accelerator Fund was from government to government.
Yeah.
So the funds... And look, I mean, maybe I'm biased towards it, but the funds are more likely to be used efficiently when it's in the private sector that are developing these properties versus goes to another public sector organization, and then they where do they go from there?
Well, you and I believe the same, right? Being entrepreneurs ourselves, I agree with you. If there's a way to create accountability, but in this particular case, there's still the intermediaries, right? The banks, I suppose. But that's my point again. If you create the financing incentives with an outcome attached to it, could you do without the what you're talking about is doing away with the intermediary, in this case, the municipalities, right?
What about the other changes CMHC? This is more not multi-unit, more towards the traditional residential they announced recently, just with the extension of amortizations, and the increase in insured mortgages.
Of the stress test as well.
Stress test for switching, but more the increase from 1 to 1.5 million.
Yeah.
What?
Oh well, that's kind of ridiculous. What the price point now is $1.5 million for a home in Canada.
What's one
start a home? What the heck? It's political positioning, right? That's ridiculous.
Well, there's some places in Canada that $1.5 million that's a very nice starter home.
But you know who they're doing this for? It's for the baby boomers that are filthy rich already, that don't need that, right? So it's I don't know. That's
why? How are they doing it for the baby boomers? What do you mean by that?
Well, in the sense that who can afford a home like that?
Oh,
right.
Yeah, but the baby boomers would at their age would traditionally, you would think, have homes already. So that doesn't really.
Well, I don't know. But who are they doing this then? They're not doing this for my son who pays $2,100 in a dog crate, and who, I don't know. Then maybe not for the baby boomers, but I don't know who it's serving. Mm-hmm. Who's it serving? You tell me then. Maybe it's more your thing than mine. I'm not a single guy, like I'm multifamily. Who do you think this is serving?
Yeah, it's interesting that, I mean, there's multiple ways to look at it. One way is it could serve the real estate industry because they're trying to make sure, they're trying to support that, especially
still selling homes.
In some areas of, call it Toronto, with a lot of closings, condos coming on the market, they need to make things a little bit easier for people to qualify for these things. Yeah. I mean, some people are going to believe that, some won't. There's that. There is the option that some people that were on the cusp of buying a property and, it's even a townhome in Oakville is pushing. Some townhomes are pushing $1 million. So now they can they might be able to still qualify for that townhome that just goes over. There could be a political purpose because they can sound good as like, hey, we're the people that are allowing them to then buy these properties. So there's different ways to look at it. But at the end of the day, I've never seen a time that when you make money more easily go into an industry or sector, so in this case, real estate, that it doesn't drive prices up.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
So I don't see how it helps in the long term. I still think it's a Band-Aid solution.
But it's not going to help a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. But it just, if money's easier to get into real estate, like look at every time real estate prices have gone above average, and kind of like once money, well, look, we're just talking MLI Select program.
Yeah.
When money was easier to get into the multi-unit space for these rentals, what happened? A bunch of people said, oh, shoot, let's do it.
Yeah.
So the same thing will happen here. And I don't think it'll happen instantaneously, but over time, it's just a Band-Aid solution. Yeah. And then what? Do you go 35 years, 40, 50? Like, well, where do you end it with that type of thing, right?
It's going to be like in Europe, right? It's
Yeah. So that's why I was curious. But you're focused on the multi.
Yeah, this is not so much my thing as much as, but I find it, it's
so then talk to me about Ontario, like as a multi-unit investor with our rent controls here.
Yeah.
I mean, how attractive of a place is it to start building these types of things?
Yeah, that's a different question. With rent control, but rents have to cover obviously your expenses. So Again, it's where the cost of money. Again, I think we go back to the issue of land, right? Land is extremely expensive here in Ontario, and it's cheaper in Alberta. So how can you open up land that's cheaper, that creates an incentive for you to build? This issue of rent control in Ontario or most jurisdictions in Canada, I don't have a magic solution. We know it destroys markets in the sense that if you can't cover your expenses, you're not going to upgrade your units. So the housing stock is being deteriorating. So there's no magic pill. It doesn't solve everything.
So it's less attractive to build in Ontario than other places. Some other places.
At this point, right?
It's funny because we talk about Ontario and Alberta a lot, obviously, because where we live, and then BC is a very common place. But there's a lot of other places in Canada that like there's in the middle. There's Manitoba and Saskatchewan that is often just skipped over. And I guess just because the industry and the jobs just aren't built out there.
And I think this is something, so food for thought, right? We're discussing here, Nick, one thing that I find, right? What happened, everywhere in the world, like people conglomerate around the large centers, the Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, etc. I think maybe this housing crisis, another aspect that we need to give it some thought is stop thinking that we always have to live near a large city. Like you just talked about Manitoba, it's very rural. Like Winnipeg, it doesn't take you long to get out of town, and it's all rural and large farm. Maybe we need to start implementing, creating, encouraging industries to be in these smaller centers where, again, land is going to be cheaper. It's just food for thought, but I think we need to rethink all of that where everybody goes to those large agglomerations. I think it's maybe something of the future. I'm not an academic doing research in that, but my own personal thought process, I wonder about that.
No, it makes sense if you can create some sort of hub of, it doesn't have to be these massive amounts of jobs, but if you create some industry there
outside,
and then that goes, and then people go there, and it creates other jobs, and then as it's no different how any other areas grew as well.
So look, this is a Garmin watch, a Phoenix 7, like titanium, and I got a GPS, can do everything. Okay,
it's fancy.
But you know what? It's built. I mean, I don't know if it's built, but the head office of Garmin is right in my town of Cochrane.
Oh yeah.
What the heck?
The Canadian head office?
Yeah.
Oh.
So just an example, right? If we think outside the box, to me that would alleviate that issue of land cost, and just diversify and build. I think it's happening naturally. You and I talked about it at the beginning. I know that's, for example, Ottawa has Canada to the west end, which has the high tech, although Shopify is core downtown Ottawa. I didn't know that, but I saw it from where I was at the Shaw Center. But
they downsized a lot, because I remember right before COVID, didn't they get some, it was in Toronto, they got some fancy new building, and then I think they ended up, the amount of square footage they decided to use was a lot less.
Yeah.
But I know at one point they said we don't need offices anymore, and I think they've gone back on that. They've changed their tune a little bit on that too.
Yeah, and that's another possible avenue. We had a guy there from a group I need to research. I didn't know him, but they bought a bunch of offices. I think the group is called Mac Group, MCHCMACH, Mac Group. Anyway, I just found out about them yesterday. Office conversion.
into residential.
Yeah, into residential.
Yeah, you're seeing a little bit more of that.
A little bit.
I'm curious. I'm going to be curious to see how that goes.
Well, so same with me. I'm curious about it. I know in Calgary, for instance, we had the office vacancy rate was in 30-35% at some point.
For a while, right?
Yeah, for quite a while. It's improving a little bit. I'm not an expert at this, but I know the few people that I talk to, first of all, it's high risk. It's very costly, right, to bring pipe and all that through your concrete stuff. But I'm sure, again, this is where, like, let's be creative and find ways to bring the cost down of doing office conversion. Because, the guy was talking about how costly it is to demolish a building like that in a core area like downtown.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So we need to think creatively about different kind of programs to enable people to do projects like that. So probably through financing programs, that'll be part of it for sure. I don't know what else needs to be done. But
I just read an article that was talking about the Toronto office space, the office market. Yeah. And it said the kind of more downtown kind of grade A ones, their vacancy rates actually has been dropping and has gone down, whereas the older ones that are just not out of the city, but just not in the core, a little bit further out, that vacancy rate's been increasing. So they're like, it's very unusual because usually across the board, the vacancy rates will kind of move in sync where they're seeing the older stock increasing. Because I guess what's happened, and I don't know if it's still happening, but I know for a period of time from the people that I know that own some office, like commercial office buildings, they told us that the incentives, people with those kind of newer, more in-demand buildings, they were offering incentives to get people to fill up those properties. Okay. And people were like, oh, for that price, I'll go into that building because it was similar to what the older stock was being priced at before. Okay. And now the older stock has had to drop their prices before that. That was now the last time I had that conversation was probably a year or so ago. Okay. So I don't know how accurate that is anymore. But reading that article brought that up again because I'm like, you're seeing those vacancy rates just move in slightly different directions, which I thought was interesting. But is it because also the older stock people are still work from home? That's a big debate now. That's a new culture now. It's a thing now, working from home. For sure. Some people, that's what they want. Less need for an office space. Yeah, for sure. There's like that's one of the things. But I think the same thing could be applied to these newer spaces too. Yeah. Like if you look at the banks, they've been trying to get people back more. Yeah. I mean, even the federal government. I was going to say about that right? We heard about that yesterday in Ottawa, right? So all these assets that are being sold, put on the market. Right now, the federal government is selling land. So that's another possible avenue to solve that. Mm-hmm. Selling all these empty buildings that the federal government owns or land. So I think there's potential there. That has to happen. Yeah, and I've seen that where they'll put up land in smaller towns. Yeah. But they'll put up land where it's not quite free, but I mean, compared to prices elsewhere, it's virtually free. Yeah. And then you can, because there's incentives to try to build out these other communities as well. And that's in line. So you put something like that with a program like ACLP, now you're talking, right? Depending on the community. Yeah, it opens up options. Like if you're willing to, like you said before, if you're, as an investor, you're willing to kind of change the box that you operate or even think in or evaluate real estate in, it opens up opportunities. And that's the point I was making. Yeah. To me, Nick, standing across from you, that's, with all my history and my previous phases of my life, where do I want to do? I want to be, as you know, I'm like you, I'm passionate. I have all this knowledge of the skills. Construction, I've done construction loans. They're not rocket science, it's just a difference. You got to vet your construction costs, your hard and soft costs, be clear, have an idea of valuation at completion and the way you go and you get financing. For me, I'm reinventing myself. From a professional point of view, I can't predict the future, but I'm 62 today. So how much longer am I going to work? Well, I don't see myself retiring. It's not part of my psyche. I already have a good lifestyle where I travel and I spend a lot of time, living my life according to my own terms. I've been doing that. That's why I connect with you and your brother. But I see myself being part of the solution. And how can I associate myself with people who have a similar vision and who want to build proper housing units, the kind of unit types that we need with more 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms for families, and be part of that solution. That to me, that excites me. I have to learn a few things about it. Like I said, I took a course on development, not because I have to as a mortgage advisor, but precisely I want to go over and above just providing financing solutions
for my clients, I want to understand their challenges. So I took a course, this winter about development, zoning, and how you do that and how it works so that I can be in a better position. But I want to be part of the solution. I think even though I've not done this in the past, I want to position myself to be able to guide investors towards new construction development.
Well, you've made the transition multiple times before successfully.
Yeah.
So if you get the word out and some people start using it, it actually kind of works out for everyone.
Well, if I think I'm the perfect candidate to help people in that, in doing these projects. So that's pretty exciting. I'm really stoked about it. I have the luxury of focusing entirely on that. Of course, I run my portfolio of properties, but they're well stabilized. I've had them for a while, so that's running on its own. Well, pretty much. There's always a bit of involvement, but
once they've been stable, once you've had them for that's what everyone misses about real estate so often. It's they always evaluate it by when they first get the property, and you have to. I understand you got to evaluate it based on that, but it's so different that once it's stabilized, or once you own it for not a super long period of time, but somewhere 5 to 10 years, call it.
That's a good time frame.
Yeah, things just change. It just changed, and then it just really just kind of flows. And
it's very nice, and it doesn't happen overnight. And that people always want to make a quick buck in real estate. You guys think the same as I do. It's not overnight riches.
No, but that's what's got us into this situation, I think, with the number of condos coming on the market here.
And Vancouver, the same thing, right? The two markets in Canada where people can make a quick buck, fairly quick, fast.
Yeah.
But they didn't build exactly what people needed, though. All these dog crates, pretty much.
Interesting. I'm just thinking the next one of these we do, it should be out of the log cabin, but during hunting season.
Hey,
that would change this up a little bit.
Hey, you want to be a hunter? You got a rifle and a truck. You're ready to come and hunt with me in Alberta.
Then we can talk about log cabins, building log cabins in the woods for people.
Why not? Why not? Why not? No, absolutely. You're invited. Come and hunt with me in Alberta.
Where, for anyone that's listening to this, being like, hey, maybe this is something I want to explore further. How do they reach out to you in this new stage of life?
So they can reach out to me at P.P. Turgeon at Maoki. That's his spell, MAOKI.ca.
MAOKI.ca.
Yeah, Maoki or Maoki, whatever you want to. MAOKI.ca. P.P. Turgeon. You'll give my resources, and I'm more than happy to give you a half-hour free consultation if you want to buy existing building or obviously build. I'm very keen on working with developers. It's a great tool, by the way. I'm very visual. We run the numbers, and what comes out is all the financing scenarios that you can go for. MLI Select still a big portion of that. But you can see if you get 50 points, that's what it looks like, what your down payment looks like, the estimated loan amount. 70 points, same thing, 100 points. You get the other financing scenario if you go conventional, non-CMHC insured, or CMHC standard. Bang! And what I like about that tool, you can see all your numbers at a glance. And then you can pick what's suitable, right? If you're going to go construction, ideally, you should have owning the land to give you a head start, because if you finance construction, it takes a while to get the first advances, right, and stuff like that. But we can talk about that. So I'm more than happy to give people half an hour. I would say my world, hope I don't sound too harsh, and I'm not the best at marketing. That's your expertise, you and your brother. But my world of multifamily, like I just dumped a client yesterday morning. Why? Because I asked him, okay, he wanted to build an eightplex. I said, look, I need an appraisal, what's going to be worth at completion, and I need your costs vetted, right? So I can run numbers. I ended up running numbers based on, something that he hand wrote on, on a notebook with the little rings, the metal rings to hold it together, which is okay. You and I we're instructors. We're there to help people. So, and even at CMHC, I had once in a while those files. But my world, you got to be a pro. You got to
the approvals that you're looking to get in that type of approval for that type of money, you need things done most often done in a different way.
You've got to be a pro. This is where people don't have the tolerance if you don't know your stuff. Do your homework. And all we're asking you is the numbers vetted by a professional, an appraisal and a cost consultant. And 2 months later, he hasn't given me that. I asked him about his bore structure, right? But if you sit down with me, I can give you the lay of the land up front. What is it that we'll need, okay? And go and get it. But if you don't go and get it, I know, Nick, I'm super stoked. I know that the potential is humongous. I just wish I were a developer. I'm not. But I think as I establish my practice as a multifamily mortgage advisor, I will develop further skills to become a developer, certainly closely associated with the developer. But you got to cross your T's, you got to dot your I's. It's an industry that, and don't take offense, but when you work in smaller rental properties, if you screw up with a realtor, you always find another realtor, you always find another lender. My world, that's not allowed. So for me, with the wherewithal that I have, the past experience where I've been, having the experience I have, I want to work with people who have their shit together. Can I just say that bluntly? Have your shit together.
So if you have your shit together, reach out to Pierre-Paul. If you don't have your shit together,
is it too much to say that, Nick? Is that terrible to say that?
No, I mean,
marketing.
Everyone's at different levels. I mean, some people are going to be new at this and they're going to need a little more hand-holding, and that's not what you're saying. It's just like for people that are actually going to kind of take the steps and move forward and do what they say they're going to do. I think that's what you're looking for.
And I'm open to you. That's what I said. I'll give you a half hour of my time. Tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you what the lay of the land and what you need to give me to be able to help you. But I'm just saying it is a world, like for me, the way I see this, the potential, this is one of the best attempts I've seen, this ACLP. More are going to be coming out. I want to work with the action takers and the people that have their shit together. Your life and your terms. Yeah. Those are my terms.
Yeah, that's great.
Together, I'd be happy to help you and to take a project to fruition.
I find as people go through each stage of their life, more and more they do it on their terms. You realize life's short, and you're like, screw it. I don't have to do things by other people's terms. I can do them on my terms. This is how I've chosen to do it because I don't want to deal with this other crap. I've done it already. Not doing it again.
Well, I haven't done it. I'm in the process of doing it now, but that's how I want to do it.
In this aspect, I just mean in general.
No, and I agree with you. Right? I agree with you. I want to be, and I could be retired. I want to help people who are going to do this, not tire kickers.
Cool, man. Appreciate you coming in. It's always good seeing you.
Well, thank you for having me. Sorry I didn't have the tequila or anything.
No. Well, we're gonna see. I'll see you tomorrow evening. Anyways,
absolutely.
there'll be things. Oh, it's your birthday. We're gonna go have a shot right now. That's what we're gonna leave and do.
Thank you, Nick, for having me.